primary care is an innovative alternative path to insurance-driven healthcare. Typically, a patient pays their doctor a low monthly membership and, in return, builds a lasting relationship with their doctor and has their doctor available at their fingertips. Welcome to the My DPC Story podcast, where each week you will hear the ever so relatable stories shared by physicians who have chosen to practice medicine in their individual communities through the direct primary care model. I'm your host, Marielle Concepcion, family physician, DPC owner, and former fee-for-service doctor. I hope you enjoy today's episode and come away feeling inspired about the future of patient care, direct primary care. So today I am so excited because we have all been waiting to have DPC conferences live and in person again. And today I have back on the podcast, Dr. Vance Lassey of Holton Direct Care, and he will be giving us a preview to the DPC Summit coming up in Kansas City. Thank you so much, Dr. Lassey, for joining us today.
First of all, thanks for having me back on. I love being on your podcast and I love what you're doing for the DPC community and just to get the word out on what DPC is to the world. And then congratulations on your success. And it's awesome to be here. And there's no place I'd rather be to announce what's coming up.
So this is the DPC Summit that's co-sponsored by the American Academy of Family Physicians, the DPC Alliance, Family Medicine Education Consortium, and American College of Osteopathic Family Medicine. So Dr. Lassey, can you please start us off with when is this conference going to be and where is it going to be?
So first of all, well, for anyone who doesn't know, the DPC Summit is the biggest DPC in-person event that historically there's ever been. And this year is no exception. We are at least 30% bigger than we ever were before COVID made us have the last two virtual. This thing is going to be huge and awesome, and I cannot wait to see everybody there. So it's going to be in July. It's July 15th, 16th, and 17th, and it's in Kansas City. And it's going to be at a hotel called the Sheraton Crown Center, I think it's called. It's downtown. It's a beautiful location.
Fantastic. And I definitely would say if you are thinking about going, if you have kids that you want to bring, there's so much to do in Kansas City. It is a ton of fun in Kansas City. So now with that said, let's get into registration because I definitely know that that's one thing that I've seen on social media and people are contacting me about, as I'm sure they're contacting you about. How can people register?
Okay, so registration's not live yet. I hope to see it go live in the next week or two. AAFP is working on a lot of logistics that have to happen before we can turn on the registration button. But you'll be able to register at dpcsummit.org probably within the next week or two. I can tell you this, if you're in the DPC community at all, on any of the social media for the Direct Primary Care Alliance or My DPC Story, I'm sure, and all the others, you'll be able to find links to that. But it's dpcsummit.org. Check back there. My guess is we'll have registration set up in the next 2 weeks. That being said, anyone can register. If you are a member of any of the hosting organizations, the big two, of course, are going to be the DPCA and the AAFP, then there will be a discount. The price, I don't know exactly that it's going to go up because everything has skyrocketed in price with hotels and food and all that stuff. So I can't tell you exactly what the price is going to be. I think it'll be $100, $150 more than it was the last time we did a live one in 2019. But we should see registration within the next 2 weeks. Anybody can register, but you will get a discount if you're a member of one of the hosting organizations.
And if people are a member of the hosting organizations, how can they obtain those discounts?
So when I think you just click a button that says you're a member of that whenever you sign up. I think is how it works. And I don't know if they'll have a database that verifies that or what, but yeah, I think it's just during the registration process, there's a lot of add-ons you click. Are you a member of this? Do you have that? Like there's going to be some workshops that cost extra. You can click if you want that, then that calculates your price in the registration process.
Awesome. Now, when you mentioned workshops, I'm so excited to get into the nitty-gritty as to what's happening on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So can you please share with the audience what to expect at this year's DPC Summit in Kansas City?
Okay, this is awesome. I will precede this with the disclaimer. Some of this may change. We're still verifying all these speakers and confirming everybody because we've been working on this since Thanksgiving, putting this together, so many people. So the first thing is, if you've been to a DPC Summit before, if you haven't been, you need to go if you're interested in DPC because it's the best and you learn everything and it's your tribe and it's just, everyone's got a smile on their face, as we always say. So you won't regret it. One of the things, if you've been before, you may have been accustomed to is the FMEC traditionally did something called an employer workshop on the first half day, which will be Friday morning. That's not happening anymore. We've gotten rid of that feature and we've plugged in more actual DPC content during that time. The other thing is we have traditionally had, for the most part, what we in the DPCA have started calling 101 content, which is basically, I want to be, I'm thinking about doing DPC, and I want to learn about everything from the littlest things to the earliest things. And that's usually been kind of what the content was for. It's for people that are either about to start or curious about DPC or about to start in general. Maybe there's a little bit of stuff for people who've just recently started, but that was about it. So we in general have always called that 101 content. Then we started doing like some 201 content, which is, okay, I have a DPC office, but I'm having some problems, or I want to grow, or I want to learn how to do something I couldn't do before. That's 201 stuff. And then that's all there ever was at any DPC conference in the history of DPC conferences until now. And now we have 301 content, which I'm very excited about, because this is something I've been behind for a long time. And that is, when you become what we call a veteran DPC doctor, maybe your clinic panel is full and you're successful and all that kind of stuff. We need to go to DPC Summit for. You already know all this stuff. You're already doing it every day. The only reason you go is because you want to hang out with your friends and help other people learn. What if you're not teaching or anything? It's hard to justify the expense. So we have got an entirely new track, entire third track that's going on. So we have 3 tracks the whole time: 101, 201, 301, all going on simultaneously. 301 content is medical content. It's stuff for people who are already practicing, but they want to maybe learn new skills, or it's just CME. So I'll talk about that first, since it's the new thing, and that's what you're clearly curious about. So the first thing we have is it's currently scheduled for Friday morning. We have a 4-hour point of care ultrasound course. That's an awesome one that I'm excited about. It probably, I don't know for sure, but I think that might have an extra, workshop fee, $50 more or something like that. Then we have another one that afternoon, Friday afternoon, which is going to be exciting. It's tentatively titled OMT for MDs. So this is going to be led by some of our DOs and sponsored by the ACOFP. And they're going to teach us how to do some of the cool stuff that they do, the MDs who weren't trained in any osteopathic stuff. So that's going to be a really neat, it's a 3-hour workshop. So that's going on Friday afternoon. And then the other things that are happening on the 301 content are, we've got specialists talking about the complicated CBC. Dr. Kinney is going to be teaching. We're going to learn about ADD, ADHD diagnosis and treatment from Dr. Ryan. Dr. Rutherford's going to do addiction medicine. We've got dermatologists coming to teach us some stuff about inflammatory skin lesions and skin cancer. Skin biopsy techniques is another lecture. And then on Sunday, I think we have some others. We have an OBGYN update. We have migraine headaches with Dr. Blackwell, and a pediatrics update from one of our pediatrics DPC doctors. So that's kind of what the 301 content looks like. And it's very exciting to be able to even offer that, let alone to offer that much of it. So that's very cool. So now hopefully we'll have something for everyone. There won't be a DPC doctor that can't make any excuse for not coming now. So 101 and 201 content this year is, it's fairly similar to what, you might have experienced the previous DPC summits. We've tried our best to organize it from the early stuff to the simple to the more complicated as it goes. So obviously, starting out with kind of a what is DPC lecture. And then we've got just a ton of rock stars teaching about everything from DPC expectations, growing pains, how to leave the system, so in the 201 content, how to grow, when to hire, how to do contracts for employees, legal stuff. In the 101, we have you hosting a panel about how I started my small business DPC, which is a small business oriented lecture, or panel lecture, I guess I'd call it. Business basics with Dr. Van Kirk, branding, name, logo, location, all that kind of stuff. Next level marketing, which is cool, getting into social media, community marketing, budget, supplies, office startup. Dr. Savage is coming to talk about third parties and DPC. If you've ever heard him talk about the myth of good insurance, that I already know that lecture is going to be killer. And he's a super professional guy. That's going to be an awesome talk. We're doing a panel called It's Our Pleasure that Dr. Walsh is hosting, that's going to be about how to get awesome staff and keep them. And she's going to have some of her staff members at the event on the panel talking about what it is they do that, is the customer service part of DPC. And then Dr. Sharkey is coming with a patient, and he and his patient are going to do an hour-long, or a 45-minute, I think, talk on kind of this patient's experience. So you can actually see DPC working from both sides, not only the doctor side and why it makes the doctor happy, but the tremendous benefit that is seen by the patient. That's going to be a cool one too. That's on Monday. That's on Friday. Sorry. So Saturday is full day. By the way, if you haven't figured this out, we start Friday. It starts in the morning. So all day thing. Saturday, same thing. Sunday is a half a day, and it gets done at like 12:31. So on the second day, at least tentatively, subject to change, we've got in the 101 track, we're going to learn about the DPC pharmacy with Dr. Newhoffel, a big panel after that about getting started, do's and don'ts, which is a very cool topic. We gave our three or four panelists. Each panelist will present this list and just in a minute or two, and then we'll talk about it. But the moderator is going to keep them in, because panels can get crazy with questions and answers, and we've got lots of time for Q&A and everything this year. So each person's going to list off these 4 topics: stuff you don't need to do ahead of opening. Number 2, stuff you absolutely need to do ahead of opening. 3, stuff you need to learn before you open. And 4, stuff you can learn as you go. That's just, each one will give those, and then they'll talk about it. I think that's going to be a very fun one, very cool one. Honestly, it's scheduled for an hour. They're going to have to work to get all that in, but it's going to be good. There may not be as much Q&A time on that one. Back to 101 on Saturday, Dr. Q and Dr. White are going to do an awesome top 10 list talk, things that docs wish they'd known before they opened their DPC. And then Marielle, you're going to be leading a social media panel after that. Then Jack Forbush, who is our DPC's undisputed tech whiz champion, is going to do a technology at DPC lecture. That's also a panel featuring people that have are using different technology angles to do DPC. Everyone's favorite lawyer, Phil Eskew, is taking the stage after that to talk about DPC legal issues. And then a lecture I'm very much looking forward to that this year. We've done similar ones to it before, but this year Jeff Gold is teaching it, and it is the dark side of DPC, which is very cool. We don't want people to come to the DPC summit and feel like it's all sunshine, rainbows, and sparkles and pixie dust. It's still hard work, and not every day is perfect. That's going to be a great lecture. And then we have a efficiency expert coming to talk at that evening before what's going to be probably my favorite part of the whole weekend, which is that evening we're having an after-hours party hosted by the DPCA. We've rented out the pavilion at the Crown Center, which is very cool. It's outdoors right next to the hotel, and it's got a big tent covering thing on it. So if it rains, we're good. And we're going to have food and drink, and it's like 3 or 4 hours long. It's just everybody can get together, talk, socialize, learn from each other, network, all of it. That is going to be awesome. Okay, back to the Saturday morning. This is 201 content. We're going to have another workshop on, this is a workshop we did at one of the DPCA masterminds in Maine that Dr. Forbush led, which I don't remember exactly what he called it at his mastermind event, but he called it something like stuff doctors forgot or are embarrassed to admit they never learned. Like that was the name of the workshop or something. It was very well received in Maine because, let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that maybe we learned in med school, but we never did it while we were practicing on the inside or in residency or whatever. And it can be as simple as like phlebotomy, just drawing blood. It's sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. And there's people who do it for a living because, like anything, you do it every day, you get good at it, don't think twice about it. But people like us who don't do it every day, even if we order it every day, we're kind of embarrassed to admit, I'm not really knowing how to draw blood very well. We're going to teach that stuff. So we're teaching quite a few hands-on things for doctors who want to learn how to do something that maybe they don't remember how to do or maybe never learned. So we'll be teaching IM sub-Q injections, EKG application, and it's not an EKG reading course, but it's like how to do an EKG and do it right. We're going to do phlebotomy, venipuncture, setting up basics like nebulizers. It's that kind of stuff. It's going to be fun. I think that workshop's going to be limited to 50 people. It probably has a small fee associated with it because of all the supplies we need as well. That's going to be a cool 201 one. After that, we've got the DPC Pharmacy 201, which is next level pharmacy stuff. And the best person possible to teach that is Nick Thompson, and he's teaching it. He's doing some really amazing things with his pharmacy. Their clinic has gotten so big that the pharmacy was becoming burdensome, and they figured out a way to streamline it that blows my mind. And so he's going to talk a ton of time for that talk to do Q&A as well. So after that, for the 201 track that day, huge lecture, 2 hours long, tons of times for questions from Shane Purcell about working with employers and TPAs. It's stuff people need to know, especially if you're trying to grow your DPC through working with employers. How do you do it in a transparent way without driving the cost up through middlemen? And that's going to be an awesome talk, 2 hours long, tons of times for Q&A. So after that, the necessary evils of HR. So HR is, talk to anybody who's hiring, whose DPC has grown beyond like just the doc and the nurse or whatever. They'll tell you HR, people coming and going, churn of employees, OSHA compliance, CLIA stuff, NPI numbers, all of that. We got a lecture for that. It's going to be good. And then that efficiency talk is after that. I already talked about the 301 content for Saturday. So let's move on to our last day, Sunday. Currently, the schedule looks like a lot of big speaker town halls with rock stars galore. So we're doing a 101 town hall. So we're doing two town halls, 2 hours each, starting 8 a.m. on Sunday, which is literally 100% Q&A. If you go back to 2016, they didn't hardly have any Q&A. And I just started, and it was an awesome summit, but there was just so many people with so many questions, and we were at the end of the conference because everybody had talked the whole time, and then the conference is over, and all these people starving for information were like, I have questions. So Julie Gunther and myself and Amy Walsh sat down in one of the meeting rooms while the people that worked at the hotel were picking up chairs and tables all around us. And it was like story time in a kindergarten where people just sat around you, and there must have been 50 people crowded around us. And we all just sat on a table and answer questions. And we just sat there and answer questions for like hours. And it was reported by everybody that went as the best part of the whole thing. And it was completely impromptu. So we said, we've got to make that a formal part of the summit because people love it. People need it. So what we're doing is two-hour speaker town halls, which are speakers from the conference sitting down in a panel, and just any question goes. You don't have to try to squeeze it in at the end of a smaller lecture. Save it for Sunday. So there's a 101 and a 201 panel. The 101 panel features Clodagh Ryan, Delicia Haynes, Kenny Q, Jen Allen, Tiffany Leonard, Ryan Newhoffel, and Anand Mehta. That's awesome. And so that's all going to be 101 content for people that are, maybe more new or looking at it or DPC curious or whatever. Then on the 201 panel, Amber Beckenhauer is moderating, Amy Walsh, Jack Forbush, Shane Purcell, myself, and Tom White. That's going to be awesome. Can't wait. Okay. Then during that time, in the 301 side is the pediatrics update and the migraine diagnosis and treatment lecture. And then in the afternoon or after the break on Sunday morning, on the 101 track, we've got Dr. Jeff and Christine and his wife, Christine Davenport, and Stacy and her husband, Phil Benson, doing that all in the family lecture that they've done before that it was very well received. How do you bring family members in and you work with them, and how does the family dynamics of DPC? They're doing that lecture. And then on the 201, Amber is going to be talking about working with specialists. And at the same time is whenever Nick and Brandon are doing OBGYN update. And then we have a closing, the big closing motivational talk that we all look forward to, that I did the carrot seed thing where, you're so this year, we're just taking a chance with this character, but Doug Ferrago is giving the closing talk. It's going to be obviously awesome. So that's kind of what it looks like. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Some of this is subject to change, obviously, but it's looking like that's the way it's going to go down. Once all that stuff's confirmed, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll see registration open up for all this. And I will say, if you want to go to the POCUS, the point of care ultrasound course, the OMT for MDs course, what is it called? The stuff I forgot to learn or forgot workshop, you're going to want to sign up soon because those have a limited number of attendants, for those. I will go ahead and also preview this. Because of the expense that's going up on everything's so expensive. The big party on Saturday night is going to be expensive. We're paying a lot of money to pull that off. We probably won't be able to pay for everyone to come to it as much as we want to. So what we'll probably do is offer, once we have the exact numbers figured out, we will probably offer a free ticket to that party, including food and drink tickets and everything, to the first X number of people who register for the conference. So it might be the first 300, it might be the first 250. I mean, who knows? It's whatever the money comes out. And then if you sign up for the conference and you register soon, you'll get to come to that party for free, which is a pretty decent value. And then once those numbers are full, then after that, if you want to come to the party, you're going to have to buy a ticket to it, which will, I don't know, $30, $40. I mean, the catering is insanely expensive in the post-COVID era. It probably was before that too, but it makes it cost prohibitive. So that's another reason to sign up early. Those are two good reasons. As soon as signups go live, you'll know. It'll be all over the DPC community. That is your preview. It is awesome. I mean, so many speakers and very few. There's a few people that are, noticeably absent from this year's faculty that are rock stars in the DPC community who unfortunately had other family obligations and weddings to go to and stuff like that we couldn't quite get everybody. But honestly, 90% or more of seasoned DPC experts who are good at teaching are going to be there. And it's awesome. I'm super excited about it.
This is so exciting to hear all of these details and this amazing preview to what's coming. And I just really love that you guys have created these tracks to really appeal to anybody and everybody in the DPC ecosystem. And I love that you highlighted how it's changing, especially for Friday, to not expect to arrive, midday and start attending, but it's going to be full day Friday, full day Saturday, and then Sunday will, trail off to the end of the summit. But ending with Dr. Doug Ferrago, amazing.
It's going to be good. And but that's right. We are hitting the ground running on Friday morning. I mean, come get some sleep on Thursday night. And because it's going to be drinking from the fire hose for anybody who's new at DPC. It is going to be drinking from the fire hose. It's going to be a lot of material. So be ready for it. And don't plan on coming at noon on Friday. You're probably going to want to come Thursday night. You're going to want to fly into Kansas City if you're flying in or whatever on Thursday, get your hotel set up and everything and be ready to go Friday morning. We'll be finishing around, roughly it looks like 1:00 on Sunday. That being said, when it comes as far as this preview goes and telling people what to think about with regard to travel, you talk to just about anybody who started out their DPC journey at a DPC summit. They'll tell you that it was hard to leave because they're talking to people that are so good and so called to just teach and help others do what they did and get free from the system and things, that there's a lot of just standing around the lobby or going down to the hotel bar or the hotel restaurant and just sitting around and talking after it's over. So if you're someone who thinks that might be you, don't be shy. Don't be worried about maybe don't plan to fly out at 1:00 on Sunday or 2, maybe make it 3 or 4 or 5 or something so that you have a little time to hang out and network and talk and ask questions. But I would encourage people to fly in on Thursday sometime and then to fly out maybe Sunday late afternoon or evening, depending on, what you can do for plane tickets. Another thing for anyone who's never been to Kansas City before to understand is the Kansas City airport is it depends on traffic, I guess, but it's no less than 30 to 40-minute drive from downtown. So it's not like it's a quick way. You're going to need to plan to leave, a couple of hours or 3 hours to make your plane before your flight. So kind of think about that as well.
This is wonderful. And thank you so much for just giving some advice about what to expect in terms of travel and what to plan for. Because yes, at any live DPC event, especially after 2 years, a hiatus of having these in-person events, it's so important to be able to have that time so you can ask questions.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're going to meet. And on that note, I just want to say, one of the things I saw people frustrated with at the last summit in Chicago was, oh, shucks, I didn't have. And so I want to ask you there, in terms of things that people should prepare with, do you have any advice as to how people should prepare to come?
A couple of things. I mean, and the first one I just thought of, and it's not exactly an answer to this question, but I guess it comes on the whole tails of you talking about, it's been a couple of years since we did this. Obviously, the reason is because of COVID. And so that's one of the reasons why there has been a delay getting all this set up is just determining what we're doing with regard to COVID safety, with regard to the pandemic. Right now in the Kansas City area, COVID's not an issue right now. There's no restrictions on anything at the current time. Obviously, if something changes between now and July, we're going to be abiding by whatever protocols the local health department wants us to do, and from those perspectives. But I did want to say that the AFP is using the same COVID safety protocols that they have used in the past. So what it's going to look like is if you're vaccinated, you bring your vaccination card and you're good. If you're not, then you can do an antigen test or a PCR test in 72 hours prior to travel and bring the results with you, and that'll get you in through the AFP's protocols. And so that's the only thing on that with regard to preparation is to make sure you're prepared along those lines. Beyond that, I have, I guess, kind of a common sense approach to starting DPC when you're DPC curious. It's common sense. I think this would work for if you're starting a restaurant too, when you're coming to a place like this with so many experts, people who've done it. So come prepared by reading a lot of the basics, buy books on DPC startup. I mean, obviously there's a dozen of them out there that are very good. The first one out was Doug Ferrago's book. Julie has a book that I wrote a few chapters of as well. There's a lot of material. There's things that a quick Google search will answer your question. The DPCA has the DPC University on our website. A chunk of that material is free for anybody. The rest of it is available for members of the DPCA. read through that stuff, get a lot of information ahead of time so that you're not wasting time asking easy to answer questions from Google or whatever. Instead, you're talking to Shane about his experience with working with employers or something, because that's deep and complicated. There's always pros and cons. And now there's still material for that on the YouTube, but in general, educate yourself ahead of time, and it'll help you focus your questions and who you ask them to a lot better. So I would advise not to come completely oblivious to what is DPC, because we're years and years into DPC now. There is a lot of information out there. I would encourage everybody to get on your podcast, listen to them. I mean, how many do you have now? Like 50 or something? I mean, more? I don't even know.
Over 70.
70. Oh my gosh, more than I thought. So that's my point. Put the podcast on, listen to it when you drive or whatever. You're going to learn how everybody did things, and it will make your experience better because you'll have a better opportunity to vet your own needs and know what it is, because there's a lot to learn. If you kind of know a lot about this, maybe you're not really worried about the scope of practice or something like that, but you are worried about running a small business. And what in the world, how do you do payroll? Oh, so-and-so seems good at that. I'll talk to them or something like that. That's how I would tell people to prepare. But you have a lot of expertise in this. What would you say is good for preparing ahead of time?
Yeah, I think that those are gems in terms of just knowing, a little bit about DPC, whether that be how to start up, whether that be how to grow, because it really makes you then be aware of, oh yeah, I really do, or I do not need to ask people that question or more about this topic when you're in person. And I definitely would say that's a gem there. In terms of preparing for networking, have a business card, go on to Vistaprint or wherever you go for your business cards and start printing those out now, because with shipping delays, who knows when they will arrive, but you'll have them prepared by July. The other thing I would say is if you're thinking about getting started in DPC and you're like, oh, I do want to do this, but I'm not ready yet. I would say, like I tell everybody, get your domain now, get your Instagram account now, so it's not taken by the time you go to the DPC Summit. And also think about, if you're developing a website, you can DIY it, you can pay someone to do it, whatever it is, but you can absolutely use networking as a time to say like, hey, let's switch information. Would you take a look at my website? Give me your opinion. It's little things like that where use this time to really help yourself succeed in DPC and become knowledgeable and confident in DPC and your knowledge in this whole ecosystem. Those are some things that I would do. I went to my first summit with washi tape, and I just took everybody's business cards and I put them in a book and I wrote little notes about them so I could remember like who this person was.
Yeah.
And like I like to say also is within, 72 hours, because it's a lot. It's going to be an amazing, incredible summit, but it is a lot. So within 72 hours after the summit, have some kind of macro to say like, hey, Dr. So-and-so, it was so great meeting you and learning about XYZ, whatever you learned about them. So that way you can continue the networking going after the summit while it's still fresh in people's minds. And if people are not fans of paper, you can absolutely take your business card digitally. And so you can, have your contact ready. If people have iPhones, you can share it directly with iPhones by AirDrop or texting. And also, if you do, like to work digitally, you can take pictures of people's business cards, fronts and backs, just to make sure that you don't lose that information if something physically falls out of your bag, or you just are a little disorganized and don't keep paper organized all that easily. So just other things to think about in terms of ways to adapt to networking in a digital sense. That's how I approach networking at conferences, but also just be prepared to pivot and to be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I was going to learn about this today. And really, really be open-minded and just know that the people who are attending the DPC Summit in Kansas City, most people will have had the DPC Kool-Aid. So just be prepared for people off the hook with hugs and everything, because it will be so exciting.
We say it all the time. It's the only medical conference you go to where everybody's smiling, and you've heard me say that 100 times, but it's very true. And you're right. I love your ideas about bringing a notebook to put cards and notes in, because it is, like I said, it's drinking from the fire hose. And if you don't do some preparing and some afterwards reviewing, you'll lose a lot of it. And so be ready for that. Another thing is, if you're not a member of the DPCA yet, you should join ahead of time, because then you get a discount when you register. You also get a discount if you're a member of the AAFP, the ACOFP, or the FMEC, any of the 4 hosting organizations. So that's another thing to do ahead of time. The weekend will wear you out. So get some sleep, come prepared. And once you go to one, you want to go to them every time. It's like, I remember my very first one. It was like I I found my tribe, I found my people, and everyone says that. And it's neat to be in a place where everyone is independent DPC doctors who are completely outside of the system. Nobody's reliant on insurance companies and middlemen to hassle them and rip their patients off and tell them what to do. And because of that, they're all happy. And it's good to hang out with your people. And here's the other reason to network for this. This is something along the lines of what you said when you're networking and trading business cards. Over time, you're going to make a lot of close friends in the DPC, universe. And if you are like most of us and you're an independent DPC doctor who basically gets out of the system and just goes and hangs up, your shingle, that's great in a million ways. And there's one way it's bad, and that is, at least at first, you're by yourself. And humans are not meant to be by yourself. And heavy lifting is never meant to be done by one person. And that includes the heavy lifting of difficult medical cases. That's a heavy cognitive lifting, right? Or the heavy lifting of taking on the heartbreak of a patient who has cancer or who just lost a loved one. All of the ups and downs that come with being a doctor in general are either cognitive or psychological heavy lifting. And we all know, if from your patients with bad backs, you tell them, don't lift this heavy stuff by yourself. Yeah. Get help. We need each other. We need people to rely on, people to help us lift heavy cases cognitively, intellectually, or people's shoulders to cry on, or people to prop us up when we're stressed out or whatever. And when you leave the medical field, a group practice or whatever, and you're by yourself, you don't have help with heavy lifting, but you need it. And that's why this networking is so good. Once you do have a core group of DPC doctors that are just like you, that are doing exactly what you're doing, probably 5 states away or whatever, you all become friends. You'll get yourself a nice, tight-knit online group. And now you've got that covered as well. And you will not be mentally, spiritually, and emotionally happy until you do, because otherwise it feels overwhelming, because you're like, this is great, I'm outside the system, but now I'm drowning in all of that, and you need help with it. And that's how you get it, is by meeting all these people in person. And to be honest, MDPC, we always say, you see one DPC, you've seen one DPC, right? But it's the same way with, like, you see one DPC doctor. We're not all the same. We don't all have the same personalities, and whatever. Pick something that, I don't know, politics or hobbies or whatever it is that you're into, that, you'll find people that are like in your kind of lane on stuff, and, you'll make a tight-knit group of other DPC doctors that are like-minded. And that's what keeps you sane. And that's what keeps you going. And that's what keeps you motivated. Not to mention, when it comes to the cognitive, intellectual heavy lifting, it also really helps you take better care of your patients and provide better medical care without jacking up their prices, because you're always referring people to specialists all the time. This is a tough case, but I've got a friend in Texas who does this all the time. Let me talk to her and I'll get back to you. And then you can help them. Like, if I got a complicated migraine case, I'm like, I don't know, let me talk to Kissy. I'll get back. I tell my patient to go home. I'll talk to Kissy. She's the expert on this. She'll help me figure you out, and then bring them back and fix them. And they never had to go to the neurologist or whatever for their complicated situation. So anyway, that's a big, big, almost unstated value of these conferences.
Awesome. So now I want to touch a little bit more on registration. You mentioned registration, keep definitely checking back on the website, dpcsummit.org, to find out and to be able to register. But in terms of on the website, there is a section about scholarships. Yeah. So I'm wondering about if you can touch on scholarships for this DPC Summit in Kansas City, but also how to support somebody like a medical student who might be rotating in your clinic, or a resident who you hope will join your practice someday. Yep,
absolutely. So we just like everybody, we do our best to support the youngest generation of doctors up and coming and get them to learn about DPC. It's the number one focus of the DPCA right now, is reaching medical students and residents and stuff. If you want to sponsor a specific person, so let's say you've got a medical student that you're close to, or maybe even just a college kid that's about to start medical school or whatever, but you're like, you need to see DPC sort of in action by going to this conference and meeting people. But this conference isn't cheap, and you want to sponsor them, and that student or resident specifically, what you need to do is just have them register and then just write them a check. You need to pay for it, because and I'm not saying that's the only way, but I'm saying if you have a specific person that you want to sponsor, you're going to have to do it between them and you. But the AFP has a nonprofit organization called the AFP Foundation, and they have I don't know, whatever you call it, it's a bank account or something that's money earmarked for scholarships for the DPC Summit. And anyone who goes to the summit can donate money to that. In fact, I think whenever you sign up You can add, I want to also include $50 to the scholarship fund or whatever. And if you go to the website, the DPC Summit website, which is dpcsummit.org, at the top, there's a link that's DPC Summit Scholarship. And at the bottom, there's a donate and inspire button you can click as well. Both of those take you to the DPC Student and Resident Scholarship Fund. And when you dump money into that, those donations are tax deductible. And that money gets used for just students or residents who just say, this looks awesome, I want to go to this. And if you don't have a student you want to sponsor, but you want to help, that's where to put the money. So if you want it to go to a specific person, you're just going to have to give them the money or whatever, because the foundation's deal is like, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's a first come first serve, or if they just divide it up between all of the people that apply, the students or whatever, or if it's the first 20 or 30 or 50, I don't know, but that's the way to do it.
Awesome. Are there any other details that you would like to add to this preview of the DPC Summit coming up in July?
I don't think so. I'm just going to their website here. If you go to dpcsummit.org, that's the main website for the conference, and it's going to have all the dates and all the registration materials on it soon. So as soon as that goes live, but you'll hear about it if you're in the DPC community at all. We'll post it everywhere we can think of on all of the social media for the Direct Primary Care Alliance. Marielle, I know you'll be talking about it on your podcast and on your website and on all your social media outlets and stuff like that. So you'll hear about it as soon as it goes live, and the price and everything will be part of that. And we'll have they'll post the price plus the discounted rate if you're a member of the organizations and stuff like that. And I'll be out there talking about it too, because I'm so excited about it that people have been asking me every day, when can we sign up? When can we sign up? So as soon as it's out there, I'll be posting it on my Facebook and whatever channels as well. I can't think of any other particular things other than just to, for everybody who's new at this, do your homework ahead of time, and be ready for drinking from the fire hose. You said it yourself. Come ready with your notebook and sharp pencil,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Lassey, for joining us today and giving us this amazing preview of what's to come in Kansas City. I'll see you there.
Welcome. Yeah, can't wait. I'll see you there.
This Sunday, look forward to hearing from Dr. Clodagh Ryan of Car Direct Care in LaGrange, Illinois. For those of you who cannot wait to register for the DPC Summit in Kansas City, again, the website to register at is dpcsummit.org. And in preparation for the summit, as Dr. Lassey mentioned, take a listen to the stories of the physicians who will be speaking at this year's summit. Doctors like Dr. Thomas White in Cherryville, North Carolina, Dr. Kissy Blackwell in Wichita Falls, Texas, Dr. Jack Forbush in Hampton, Maine, Dr. Amber Beckenhauer in Blair, Nebraska, Dr. Anand Mehta in Marietta, Georgia, and Dr. Vance Lassey himself in Holton, Kansas. Head on over to mydpcstory.com to find all their stories and get even more details about this upcoming summit in Kansas City. Until next week, this is Marielle Concepcion.